Marcus Carter woke up at 5:47 a.m., 13 minutes before his alarm clock rang. It was a habit the 45-year-old businessman had developed over 20 years of running the family business. He carefully got out of bed, trying not to wake his wife, Lisa, who was sleeping peacefully on her side of their marital bed. Even in their sleep, there was an invisible distance between them. She slept facing the wall. He faced the window. The Carter brothers' car dealership was located on a busy street in the suburbs of Chicago, in a 2-story red brick building that Marcus and his younger brother David had bought 7 years ago. Back then, business was booming. Americans were buying cars, taking out loans, and changing cars every 3 to 4 years. The Carter brothers sold used mid-range cars, reliable Fords, Chevrolets, and Hondas with up to 100,000 miles on the clock. It was honest work for honest people. But the last 2 years had changed everything. Loans became more expensive, buyers more cautious, competition tougher. Large dealerships offered 0% financing, 5-year warranties, and loyalty programs. A small family business couldn't compete with such offers. Marcus sat in his office on the second floor studying the financial reports for the last quarter. The numbers were brutal. Profits were down 38% from last year. Rent, salaries for 4 employees, insurance, and advertising ate up almost all of the revenue. The bank loan secured by the building required monthly payments of $12,000. "We're going under," he said aloud to the empty office. There was a knock at the door. David, 3 years younger but looking younger than his 42, entered. He was athletic, had a trendy haircut, and wore expensive jeans and a shirt. David always took care of his appearance, especially after his divorce 2 years ago. "Good morning, big brother," David said, sinking into the chair opposite Marcus's desk. "Judging by the look on your face, the numbers aren't good. We need to make some changes, Dev. Radical changes. I'm listening to your suggestions." Marcus put down his calculator and looked at his brother. David was in charge of sales and marketing. Marcus was in charge of finance and general management. Formally, they were equal partners, but Marcus, as the older brother, always made the key decisions. "We could expand our credit program. Give loans to people with bad credit at high interest rates. That's risky." David shook his head. "There will be a lot of defaults. We could try franchising. Sell the rights to use our brand in other cities." "What brand do we have, Marcus?" "We're just one of hundreds of small car dealerships." Marcus knew his brother was right, but there were fewer and fewer alternatives to bankruptcy. "There's one more option," David leaned forward. "Sell the business. While it's still worth something, it's our baby, our father's legacy. Our father died 10 years ago, Marcus, and our baby is becoming a burden." The conversation was interrupted by the ringing of the phone. Marcus picked up the receiver. "Carter Brothers, Marcus speaking." "Mr. Carter, this is Michael Thompson from First National Bank. We need to meet today. You're behind on your loan payments." Marcus glanced at the calendar. It was the 23rd. The payment was indeed due on the 20th. "Michael, the money will be available tomorrow. There's been a slight delay in receiving funds from our buyers. Mr. Carter, this is the 3rd delay in 6 months. The bank is concerned about your ability to pay. Tomorrow, Michael, I promise." Marcus hung up and saw his brother's understanding look. "How much time do we have?" David asked. "If we don't find the money in the next month, the bank will take the building. And without the building, there's no business. 12,000? This month. Plus the accumulated debt, 18,000 by the end of the week." David leaned back in his chair and looked thoughtfully out the window at the parking lot with 30 cars waiting for buyers. "I have an idea," he said finally. "But you won't like it. Go ahead. Do you know Rick Moreno?" Marcus knew him. Rick Moreno owned a chain of car washes and quick repair shops across the state. A local celebrity, his photos regularly appeared in the city newspaper at charity events and sporting events. Rumor had it that some of his money was of dubious origin. What about him? He's buying car dealerships. He's turning them into part of his chain. He's offering good money. "Dave, we can't. We can and we must. Otherwise, we'll lose everything." Marcus imagined telling Lisa about selling the family business, about having to find new jobs at their age, about their children's college plans being in jeopardy. "Let me think about it." "There's no time to think, big brother. Rick is leaving on a business trip next week. If we want to meet with him, we have to decide today. After David left, Marcus was left alone with his thoughts and the numbers in his reports. $18,000. For many people, it's a small amount. For him, it was the difference between salvation and ruin. He opened his desk drawer and took out a photograph. Lisa, 17-year-old Jason, and 15-year-old Emma last summer at Lake Michigan. A happy family against the backdrop of the sunset. Jason wanted to study engineering at Northwestern University. Emma dreamed of medical school. Good kids, smart, determined. They deserved a better future. Marcus closed his eyes and tried to find a way out of the financial maze that was slowly sucking his family down. That evening, over dinner, Lisa talked about her day at the accounting firm where she had worked for the past 5 years. Jason discussed his upcoming exams, and Emma complained about her strict biology teacher. It was the normal family atmosphere that Marcus cherished and feared losing. "How's the car dealership?" Lisa asked, cutting the salad. "Fine," Marcus replied, avoiding her gaze. "David looked worried when I saw him this morning." Lisa was always observant. 20 years of marriage had taught her to read the moods of her husband and his brother. "We're having some minor issues with the bank, nothing serious." "Marcus," Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. "We're a family. If there are problems, I need to know." He looked at his wife, at his children, at the cozy kitchen with family photos on the walls. "All of this could be gone in a few weeks. Everything will be fine," he said. "I promise." But deep down, Marcus knew that there was almost no time left to solve the problems, and the options were becoming increasingly desperate. Lillian Gray never planned to become an escort. At 28, she ran her life with the cold calculation of a successful businessman. A $400,000 apartment in an upscale Chicago neighborhood, a brand new Mercedes, a bank account with enough money to allow her to not work for 2 years if she wanted to. But Lillian had no intention of stopping. Money meant freedom, and freedom was more important to her than respectability. She sat in a cafe on Michigan Avenue, sipping a $6 latte and scrolling through the news on her tablet. A meeting with a client was scheduled for 8 in the evening. A middle-aged businessman, first-time client of Exclusive Companions. Standard rate, $500 an hour plus tips. Simple math for a successful life. Lillian had no qualms about her profession. She provided a service that men were willing to pay for. Company, attention, the illusion of understanding. Sometimes sex, but not always. Many clients just wanted to talk to a beautiful woman who wouldn't judge them. The phone rang. It was Monica Harris, the agency owner. "Lily, we have a change of plans for today. Go ahead. Your client at 8 canceled. But there's another one, more lucrative. Marcus Carter, 45, married, owns a car dealership. He's willing to pay $1,000 for the evening." Lillian raised an eyebrow. $1,000 was significantly above the standard rate. What's the catch? There's no catch. He's just a man in a stressful situation and willing to pay extra for quality service. The meeting is at the Grand Plaza Hotel in the center, room 1247. What time? 9 o'clock in the evening. "Lily, he seems nervous. Be extra careful with him." Lillian wrote the details in her electronic calendar. $1,000 for one evening would allow her to afford the week-long vacation in Miami she had planned for next month. Marcus Carter stood at the window of room 1247 and looked out at the lights of Chicago at night. The city was alive. Cars crawled through the streets. People hurried along the sidewalks, and windows glowed in office buildings where people worked overtime, trying to solve their problems. He couldn't believe he was here. A family man, father of 2 children, a respected member of the local business community. And here he was, waiting for an escort in a hotel room that cost $200 a night, money he didn't have. The decision came spontaneously after another call from the bank. Michael Thompson informed him that if the payment was not received by Friday, the bank would begin foreclosure proceedings. Marcus hung up, left the office, and told David that he was going to meet with a potential major buyer. Instead, he drove to the city center and stopped near a group of men in expensive suits who were smoking at the entrance to a restaurant. One of them, learning of Marcus's problems, gave him a business card for an agency called Exclusive Companions. "Sometimes a man needs to take his mind off his problems," said the stranger. "These girls know how to listen." Marcus called from his car, not quite sure what he was doing. The woman's voice on the other end of the line was professionally polite. Yes, they could arrange a meeting for that evening. Yes, their girls were discreet and educated. Yes, $1,000 for the evening was their standard VIP rate. $1,000, money he didn't have. But Marcus paid with a credit card already maxed out. What was another $1,000 when he owed $18,000? There was a knock at the door. Marcus looked at his watch. Exactly 9. Punctuality in the escort business was apparently as highly valued as in regular business. He opened the door and saw a tall woman with chestnut hair and an elegant black dress. Lillian Gray looked like a successful businesswoman who could run a corporation or negotiate million-dollar deals. "Marcus?" She held out her hand to shake his. "I'm Lillian. Please come in." Lillian entered the room and looked around appraisingly. It was a standard business suite with a large bed, a sofa, a minibar, and a view of the city. On the table was a bottle of expensive whiskey that Marcus had ordered from the minibar for $80. "Would you like a drink?" he asked. "I'd love to." Whiskey on the rocks. Marcus poured the drinks, his hands shaking slightly. Lillian noticed his nervousness and turned on her professional charm. "Tell me about yourself, Marcus. Monica said you're a businessman. A car dealership. A family business with my brother." "Interesting. I've always admired people who start their own businesses. It takes courage." Marcus sat down on the sofa, and Lillian settled into the armchair opposite him. She kept her distance, not rushing things as she studied her client. "What kind of cars do you sell?" "Used cars. Reliable models for the middle class. Nothing fancy. But it's an honest business. People always need transportation." Marcus nodded and took a big sip of whiskey. The alcohol calmed his nerves a little. "Lillian, I have to admit I've never done anything like this before. I understand. Many of my clients are turning to such services for the first time. There's no shame in that. I'm just going through a difficult period in my life." Lillian leaned forward, showing her attention. It was part of her professional arsenal, the ability to listen and create the illusion of genuine interest. "Would you like to talk about it?" And Marcus began to talk about the car dealership's financial problems, the bank's demands, the impossibility of admitting the seriousness of the situation to his family. The words poured out like a dam that had been built over months had finally broken. Lillian listened, asking clarifying questions from time to time. Her interest was genuine. Marcus's story reminded her of her own father, who had lost a small construction company when she was 16. At the time, she had sworn to herself that she would never find herself in a similar situation. $18,000, she repeated. "That's not a large amount for a business." "It's huge for my business. We've been barely making ends meet for 6 months. What does your brother suggest? Sell everything to Rick Moreno. Do you know him?" Lillian did. Rick Moreno had been one of her regular clients 2 years ago, until he married a young model. A rude, cocky man with shady connections and too much money. I've heard the name. They say he pays good money for businesses. Yes, but that means the end of the family business. The end of everything my father and I have built. Marcus finished his whiskey and looked at Lillian. He saw no judgment or pity in her eyes, only professional understanding. "Lillian, can I ask you a personal question?" "Of course. How did you get into this business?" Lillian smiled. Many clients asked her that question, expecting to hear a tragic story of coercion or life circumstances. I chose it consciously. After college, I worked at an advertising agency for $30,000 a year. I shared a one-room apartment with a roommate, drove a used car, and saved on everything. Then one day I realized I could make 10 times more using my natural gifts and intelligence. Don't you regret it? Never. I'm independent, I have money, I'm in charge of my own time. How many women can say that? Marcus thought about her words. There was not a hint of regret or shame in Lillian's voice. She spoke about her profession the same way he might talk about selling cars. "Aren't you afraid of being judged? Judged by whom?" "People who work at jobs they hate for a salary that barely covers their living expenses. People who are afraid to take risks and change their lives." Lillian stood up and walked over to the window where Marcus had been standing an hour ago. "Marcus, you're paying me $1,000 for this evening. Money you don't have. Why?" "I don't know," he replied honestly. "Maybe I wanted to feel like a man who could afford such a luxury. I understand." Sometimes we need to buy the illusion of who we want to be. She returned to the chair and sat down, crossing her legs. Elegant, confident, completely in control of the situation. What do you want from this evening, Marcus? Honestly? Just to forget about my problems for a few hours. To feel like a successful man, not a bankrupt man who is cheating on his family. Lillian nodded. She understood clients like this. Men in difficult situations often sought not sex, but confirmation of their masculinity and success. Then let's create that illusion, she said, rising from her chair. They spent the rest of the evening talking about life, dreams, and disappointments. Lillian was a master at creating an atmosphere of intimacy without coercion. Marcus felt understood and accepted for who he was, with his problems, fears, and doubts. At midnight, Lillian looked at her watch. I have to go. Of course. Thanks for tonight. Thank you, Marcus. If you ever want to talk again, you know where to find me. She gathered her purse and headed for the door. She turned back at the threshold. And remember, sometimes the most desperate decisions turn out to be the right ones. The door closed, leaving Marcus alone with an empty bottle of whiskey and the thought that he had just spent $1,000 on a conversation with a woman he didn't know. $1,000 he didn't have. But for the first time in months, he felt at peace. 3 days had passed since his meeting with Lillian, and Marcus couldn't get her out of his head. It wasn't because of physical attraction, but because of the strange sense of peace he had felt in her company. For the first time in months, someone had listened to him without judgment, without advice, without trying to solve his problems. But the problems hadn't gone away. The bank had moved the deadline to Monday, the last extension. David insisted on meeting with Rick Moreno, but Marcus was still hesitant. Selling the family business felt like a betrayal of his father's memory and everything he believed in. On Thursday evening, he was sitting in his office when the phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. Marcus Carter speaking. Marcus, it's Lillian. I hope I'm not disturbing you? His heart skipped a beat. He hadn't expected her to call first. No, of course not. How are you? I'm fine. Listen, I've been thinking about our conversation, about your business problems. Maybe I can help. Marcus sat up straight in his chair. How? I'd prefer to discuss such matters in person. Can we meet tomorrow evening? Same hotel? Same room? Marcus hesitated. Another $1,000 in credit card debt, but curiosity and desperation overcame caution. Okay, 9. See you then. Friday was a nightmare. In the morning, Michael Thompson from the bank came by in person to inspect the collateral and remind him that Monday was the last day of the grace period. In the afternoon, 2 buyers backed out of deals at the last minute, citing defects they had found in the cars. In the evening, Lisa asked why he was so tense, and Marcus lied again, saying everything was fine. At 8:30, he stood in front of the bathroom mirror, tidying himself up before meeting Lillian. Lisa was watching TV in the living room, and the children were doing their homework. It was a normal family idyll that could be shattered at any moment. I'm going to meet with a potential investor, he told his wife. I'll be back late. Good luck, dear. A kiss goodbye, familiar and warm. Marcus felt a pang of conscience, but he suppressed it. He was doing everything for his family. In room 1247 of the Grand Plaza Hotel, Lillian was waiting for him with a bottle of champagne and a mysterious smile. She was wearing a blue dress that accentuated her figure, her hair gathered in an elegant hairstyle. She looked like a movie star on the red carpet. You look beautiful, Marcus said, closing the door. Thank you. Sit down, we have a lot to talk about. She poured champagne into 2 glasses and handed one to him. To new opportunities, she proposed a toast. To new opportunities, Marcus repeated, not understanding what she meant. Lillian sat down on the sofa next to him, closer than last time. Her perfume smelled of jasmine and something else he couldn't identify. Marcus, I've been doing some research into your financial problems. I hope you don't mind. He raised an eyebrow. What research? I have a client who works in banking. I asked him to check the credit history of Carter Brothers. Marcus felt a sense of alarm. How deep did she dig? And what did he find? That your problems are more serious than you told me. $18,000 is just the beginning. Your total debt exceeds $100,000. Marcus hung his head. His darkest secrets had been uncovered by a stranger in a matter of days. Yes, it was true. But I also found out that you have assets. The land under the car dealership is worth $300,000. The inventory is another $150,000. The brand and customer base are worth at least $50,000. All of that is mortgaged to the bank. Not everything. Lillian took a tablet out of her purse and showed him several documents. Your share in the business is officially valued at $225,000. Half belongs to you, half to your brother. Marcus studied the figures. Lillian had analyzed his finances more thoroughly than he had in the last 6 months. What are you getting at? That you have options you haven't considered. She moved even closer. Their knees were almost touching. What options? Sell your share to your brother, get the money, and start a new business. David can't pay $100,000 for my share. He doesn't have the money either. What if he gets financing? Marcus looked at her suspiciously. Lillian, what's going on? Why are you interested in my financial problems? She stood up and walked over to the window, looking at the city lights at night. Because I have a proposal. A mutually beneficial proposal. What kind of proposal? I can arrange a loan for your brother to buy your share. Low interest, flexible repayment schedule. From whom? From people who are interested in investing in local businesses. Marcus realized that the conversation was taking a dangerous turn. In Lillian's world, people interested in investing were rarely law-abiding bankers. What do they want in return? Lillian turned to him. There was something new in her eyes. Calculation, cold, business-like efficiency. The car dealership would be used to launder money. Nothing big, nothing noticeable. Just a few extra transactions a month. That's illegal. It's business, Marcus. Dirty but profitable. Marcus finished his champagne and put the glass on the table. His hands were shaking. Lillian, I can't be involved in something like this. You won't be involved. You'll sell your share and walk away with clean hands and money in your pocket. What about my brother? Your brother is a grown man. He makes his own decisions. Marcus stood up and began pacing the room. The offer was tempting and frightening at the same time. He could save his family from bankruptcy, but at the cost of involving his brother in criminal schemes. Why are you doing this for me? I'll get a commission for arranging the deal. $50,000. What if I refuse? Then on Monday, the bank will take your building, and you'll lose everything. Lillian approached him and placed her hand on his shoulder. Marcus, life doesn't always give us clear choices. Sometimes you have to choose between bad and very bad. Let me think about it. There's no time. The decision has to be made today. My partners are flying out tomorrow morning. Marcus sat back down on the couch and closed his eyes. Numbers spun around in his head. $100,000 from selling his share, paying off all his debts, a new life for his family. Against that was involving David in shady dealings and betraying the principles his father had instilled in the family business. What if David refused? He won't. He's been looking for ways to save the car dealership for 3 months. This is his chance. How do you know? I do my homework on all potential partners. Lillian sat down next to him and took his hand in hers. Marcus, I understand your doubts, but look at the facts. Your business is dying. Your family is on the verge of financial ruin. You have a chance to fix it, at your brother's expense. David will get what he's always wanted. Complete control of the dealership, plus funding to grow the business. And criminal obligations, which he may or may not fulfill. The choice will be his. Marcus looked at Lillian. Beautiful, smart, ruthless. He realized he had underestimated her from the start. She wasn't just an escort, but part of a more complex and dangerous machine. Lillian, who are you really? A woman who knows how to make money in many ways. Marcus's phone rang. It was Lisa. Sorry, I have to take this. Of course. Hi, honey. Marcus, where are you? It's already 10:30. The meeting is running late. We're discussing important matters. Jason asked about the college tuition. When can we submit the paperwork? Marcus glanced at Lillian, who was listening intently to the conversation. Everything will be sorted out soon, dear. Very soon. Okay, don't stay out too late. I love you. I love you too. Marcus hung up and saw the understanding look on Lillian's face. College tuition is another $20,000 a year, she said quietly. Yes, you have no choice, Marcus. He knew she was right. Moral principles wouldn't pay for the children's education. or save the family from poverty. "All right," he said finally. "I agree." Lillian smiled, the first genuine smile of the evening. A wise decision. She took an envelope out of her purse and handed it to him. "What's this?" "The papers for your brother. An offer to buy your share and the terms of financing. You were sure I would agree. I've studied you, Marcus. You're a good man in a desperate situation. Good people make compromises for their families." Marcus took the envelope. The papers inside could save his family and ruin his brother, or vice versa. Give David a chance at success at the expense of his own conscience. "When should I give this to David?" "Tomorrow morning. Sign the papers by noon, and the money will be in your account on Monday. And then you're free. You can start a new life with a clean slate." Lillian stood up and picked up her purse. "I have to go. I have another meeting today." "Lillian," Marcus didn't know what to say. "Thank you. I'm sorry. Goodbye. Everything will be fine, Marcus. You made the right decision." She kissed him on the cheek, lightly, almost like a friend. "Good luck with your new life." The door closed, leaving Marcus alone with the envelope that could change everything. He opened it and read the documents. Professionally drafted, legally flawless, financially attractive, and completely immoral. Marcus poured himself another glass of champagne and sat by the window, looking out at the city at night. Somewhere out there, his family was sleeping peacefully, unaware of the deal he had just made. Somewhere out there, his brother was making plans to save the car dealership, not knowing that the decision had already been made. And somewhere out there, Lillian was driving to her next meeting, her next client, her next deal. Cold, calculating, successful. Marcus finished his champagne and hid the envelope in his jacket's inside pocket. Tomorrow, he would offer David a deal that would save one brother and possibly ruin the other. But he no longer had a choice. Saturday, 6:23 a.m. Maria Sanchez pushed a cart of clean linens down the hallway of the Grand Plaza Hotel's 12th floor. 37 years as a maid had taught her to read the hotel like an open book, by the sounds coming from the rooms, the smells in the corridors, the number of towels in the laundry basket. This morning, something was wrong. Usually, by 6:30 in the morning, businessmen were already showering, getting ready for early meetings. Families with children were having breakfast, discussing their plans for the day. Young couples were making love or sleeping in each other's arms after a stormy night. But room 1247 was silent, complete, dead silence. Maria stopped at the door and listened. Nothing. She knocked softly, the standard procedure before entering a room. "Housekeeping," she called softly. Silence. She knocked louder. "Housekeeping! Cleaning service!" No answer. Maria took out her MasterCard and opened the door. The first thing she noticed was a sharp chemical smell mixed with the scent of expensive perfume. Then she saw clothes scattered on the living room floor. "Hello? Anyone here?" she called as she entered the room. There were 2 glasses on the coffee table, one empty, the other half full, a bottle of champagne in an ice bucket, women's high-heeled shoes by the sofa. Maria walked further into the room and froze at the entrance to the bedroom. 2 bodies lay on the bed. A man in an unbuttoned white shirt and trousers, a woman in a blue dress. Both were motionless, their eyes open, staring at the ceiling. Maria Sanchez had worked in hotels long enough to tell the difference between dead people and sleeping people. She turned and quickly left the room, her hands shaking as she reached for her work phone. "Front desk, this is Maria. There are dead people in room 1247, 2 of them. Call the police." Detective Sarah Mitchell received the call at 7:14 a.m. as she was making breakfast for her 11-year-old son, Jack. 16 years on the homicide squad had taught her to switch instantly from mother to professional. "Jack, your breakfast is in the microwave. Take it to Mrs. Thompson at school," she said, already pulling on her jacket. "See you tonight." "Another murder, Mom?" "Possibly. Be good." Sarah arrived at the Grand Plaza Hotel at 7:31 a.m. Police cars had already blocked off the parking lot, and uniformed officers were setting up a perimeter. Lieutenant Mike Rodriguez, her partner for the past 5 years, was waiting at the entrance with a notepad in his hands. "What do we have?" Sarah asked, showing her badge to the hotel security guards. Two dead in room 1247, a man and a woman. The maid found the bodies at 6:23 a.m., and the manager called us at 6:35. Cause of death? Not clear yet. No signs of violence, but the medical examiner hasn't arrived yet. They went up to the 12th floor, where forensic investigators were already at work. Room 1247 was cordoned off with yellow tape, and a photographer was taking pictures of every inch of the room. Sarah put on latex gloves and entered the room. Her first impression was that it was an expensive place for a date. Champagne, dim lighting, elegant furnishings, but the chemical smell was alarming. "Did anyone touch anything before we arrived?" she asked crime scene investigator Dan Chen. "Just the maid. She came in, saw the bodies, left immediately and called the manager. The manager looked in to make sure, then locked the room." Sarah went into the bedroom and examined the bodies carefully. The man was about 45 years old, well-dressed with no visible injuries. The woman was about 30, attractive, wearing an expensive dress and jewelry. Both were lying on their backs, arms at their sides, eyes open. "Looks like poisoning," said Rodriguez, joining her. "Yes, but their positions are too calm. Usually poisoning victims die in convulsions." Sarah leaned over the man and sniffed. In addition to the chemical smell she had noticed when she entered, there were traces of expensive cologne and alcohol. "Dan, what can you say about the time of death?" "Preliminary estimate is between midnight and 2 in the morning. Rigor mortis has begun, but is not yet complete. That means they've been dead for about 6 or 7 hours." Sarah returned to the living room and began to examine the scene. There were 2 glasses on the table, one empty, the other with traces of champagne. A woman's handbag was on the chair. A man's jacket was neatly hung on the back of a chair. "Rodriguez, check the documents." Mike carefully searched the jacket and pulled out a wallet. Marcus Carter, 45 years old, address in the suburbs, driver's license, credit cards, family photo, family man. And the woman? Rodriguez opened the purse and found an ID card. Lillian Gray, 28 years old, address in the city center, an expensive neighborhood. Sarah wrote the names in her notebook and continued her search. The man's wallet contained only $43 in cash, but several credit cards. The woman's purse contained $500 in cash, expensive cosmetics, and 2 phones. "2 phones?" Rodriguez asked in surprise. "One personal, the other work probably." Sarah turned on both phones. The personal one was password locked, but the work phone opened. The last calls showed contacts named Michael VIP, Robert Regular, and James New. "An escort girl," Sarah said. "And he's a family man who's cheating on his wife," added Rodriguez. "Classic." There was a knock at the door. Dr. Allison Clark, a medical examiner with 20 years of experience, entered. "Sarah, Mike, what do we have?" "2 dead, suspected poisoning. The bodies are in the bedroom." Dr. Clark went to examine the victims, while Sarah continued to search the room. She noticed an envelope sticking out of the inside pocket of the man's jacket. "Rodriguez, did you see that?" She carefully removed the envelope and opened it. Inside were documents, a business sale agreement, and financing terms. "Carter Brothers Car Dealership," Sarah read. "Sale of 50% of Marcus Carter's share to his brother David Carter." A family business? It looks like it. And judging by these documents, they're in financial trouble. Dr. Clark returned from the bedroom with her preliminary findings. External signs indicate poisoning. No injuries, bruises, or signs of a struggle. Both died peacefully, probably unaware of the danger. What could have killed them? It's too early to say. We need a full examination. But judging by the smell, it could be cyanide or something similar. A fast-acting poison. Suicide? Murder-suicide? Unlikely. No notes. Both are lying in relaxed positions. More likely, they were poisoned without their knowledge. Sarah wrote down the medical examiner's conclusions and turned to the forensic team. "Dan, pay special attention to the glasses and the champagne bottle. If there's poison, we need to know which glass it was in. I've already taken samples. The results will be in a few hours." The hotel manager appeared in the hallway, a nervous man in an expensive suit. "Detective, can I talk to you?" Sarah stepped out into the hallway. "I'm Frank Morrison, the hotel manager. This incident could seriously damage the hotel's reputation." "Mr. Morrison, 2 people are dead. The hotel's reputation is not a priority right now. Of course. Just if this can be handled discreetly." This is a murder investigation. There will be no discretion. The manager swallowed hard and nodded. What can you tell me about room 1247? It was booked under the name Marcus Carter for one night, paid by credit card yesterday afternoon. Did he check in alone? Yes, alone. But Morrison hesitated. But what? Our staff saw a woman go up to his room. Around 9 o'clock in the evening. Description: tall, dark hair, elegantly dressed. She looked like an expensive escort. Sarah wrote down the information and continued her questioning. Did anyone else go up to the 12th floor last night? I'll check the surveillance footage. Do it quickly, and don't let anyone on that floor except the police. Sarah returned to the room where Rodriguez was examining the contents of Lillian's purse. What did you find? Business cards from exclusive companions, expensive cosmetics, and this. He showed her a small notebook with notes. Appointment schedule? Looks like it. Yesterday, MC, Grand Plaza, 9 p.m., $1,000. MC is Marcus Carter, $1,000 a night, expensive girl. Sarah opened the notebook and flipped through the entries for the past few weeks. Dozens of appointments with different clients, amounts ranging from $500 to $2,000. She earned more than some doctors, Sarah noted. Her phone rang. It was Captain Thomas Johnson. Mitchell, what's going on at the hotel? Double murder. A businessman and an escort girl. Suspected poisoning. Motive? Not clear yet. Possibly related to the victim's financial problems or her professional activities. We need to move fast. The press already knows about the incident at the hotel. Got it, Captain. Sarah ended the call and saw that another expert had arrived, a computer technician. Jason, check the victim's phones, especially the last calls and messages, already on it. The man's phone is simple, just family contacts and business calls. The woman's phone is more interesting. What's there? The last incoming call was yesterday at 8:47 p.m., unknown number. The call lasted 37 seconds. Can you trace the number? I'm working on it. Dr. Clark finished her preliminary examination of the bodies and approached Sarah. What can you tell us? Both died at approximately the same time, between midnight and 1 a.m. The cause of death was poisoning by a fast-acting toxin, most likely through alcohol. Murder or suicide? Murder. The poison was in one of the glasses, but both drank from it. Someone spiked it, knowing they would be drinking together. Sarah considered the information. Someone wanted to kill both of them, or one in particular, but miscalculated the dosage. Doctor, is it possible that the poison was intended for only one of them? Quite possible, unless the killer knew they would be sharing the drink. Rodriguez approached with new information. Sarah, I spoke to the concierge. He remembers Marcus Carter. He seemed nervous, kept checking his phone, and ordered an expensive bottle of champagne to the room. Did he see the woman? Yes. She arrived in a taxi around 9 and went straight to the room. The concierge said she looked like a high-class professional. Did anyone else come? The waiter brought the champagne at 8:30 p.m. No one else. Sarah felt that the case was getting more complicated. A double murder in a hotel, victims from different social classes, no clear motive. Rodriguez, we need to talk to the Carter family and the agency where Gray worked. Should we notify the family? Yes, but carefully. And check the alibis of all close associates at the time of death. Forensic scientist Dan Chen is here with preliminary results. Sarah, traces of cyanide were found in a glass with lipstick marks. The concentration is lethal for 2 people. So the poison was in the woman's glass? It looks that way. But they clearly drank from both glasses. So Lillian Gray was the target and Marcus Carter was an accidental victim? Or vice versa, suggested Rodriguez. Someone knew they would be drinking together. Sarah looked at her watch. 3 hours had passed since the bodies were discovered, and the number of questions was only growing. Who wanted to kill an escort girl or a troubled businessman? How did the killer get into the room? Why cyanide? Dan, check all surfaces for fingerprints, especially the door handles and the minibar. Already on it. So far, I've found prints from the victims, the maid, and the waiter. Anyone else? There are several unidentified prints on the front door, but they could be from any of the previous guests. Sarah's phone rang again. This time, it was Jason, the computer expert. Detective, I traced the last call to Lillian Gray's phone. Where was it made from? The number is registered to David Carter, the victim's brother. Sarah and Rodriguez exchanged glances. The case was taking a new turn. Time of the call? 8:47 p.m., duration 37 seconds. That means just over an hour before the estimated time of death. Sarah closed her notebook and looked at the crime scene. The elegant room had been turned into a scene of tragedy, but the mystery was just beginning. Why did the victim's brother call an escort girl an hour before the murder? What did he say to her in 37 seconds? Rodriguez, we need to find David Carter. Urgent. David Carter lived in a modern apartment 20 minutes drive from the car dealership. Detective Mitchell and Lieutenant Rodriguez parked at the entrance at 11:15 a.m., when most of the residents had already left for their Saturday activities. The doorman in the lobby confirmed that Mr. Carter was home. His car had been in the parking lot since Friday evening. The elevator took the detectives to the 7th floor, to apartment 7B. David opened the door after the second ring. A 42-year-old man in his home clothes, unshaven with red eyes, the smell of alcohol and cigarettes. Sarah showed her badge. David paled even more, but let them into the apartment. Modern furniture, expensive appliances, but the mess of a bachelor. Empty beer bottles on the coffee table, an ashtray full of cigarette butts. Mr. Carter, we have some sad news to tell you about your brother Marcus. David slowly sank into a chair, his eyes fixed on the detective. Rodriguez studied the apartment, making notes about the layout and possible clues. He's dead, David said quietly, as if stating a fact rather than asking a question. How do you know? Because you're here. Because he hasn't answered his phone since this morning. Because David rubbed his face with his hands. What happened? Sarah sat down opposite him, studying his reaction. Grief or relief? Fear or calculation? Your brother was found dead in a hotel this morning, with a woman named Lillian Gray. David nodded, as if he had been expecting those names. How did they die? Poisoning. Mr. Carter, you called Miss Gray yesterday at 8:47 p.m. Why? David stood up and walked over to the window. Through the glass, he could see the parking lot where his dark blue Honda Accord was parked among other cars. I warned her. About what? That Marcus was playing with fire. That the deal she offered would ruin us all. Rodriguez and Sarah exchanged glances. David knew about the criminal scheme. What deal, Mr. Carter? David turned to them. His eyes showed the exhaustion of a man who had been carrying a heavy burden for too long. The car dealership has been going bankrupt for 6 months. Marcus hid it from his family, took out loans, mortgaged his property. Last week, the bank gave him an ultimatum, $18,000 by Monday or they would seize the collateral. And then Lillian Gray showed up. She offered Marcus a way out. Sell me his share in the business for $100,000. The money was supposed to come from investors. What investors? People who wanted to use the car dealership to launder money. A few fictitious deals a month, inflated prices, fake documents, the usual scheme. Sarah took down his statement, trying to figure out the motive for the murder. A family business, criminal money, desperate brothers. Did you agree to the deal? I was ready to agree. Marcus brought the papers yesterday morning and said everything was settled. But by evening I realized what we were getting ourselves into. And you called Lillian? Yes, I told her we were backing out. That we'd find another way to save the business. How did she react? David returned to his chair and lit a cigarette with trembling hands. She said it was too late, that the contract had already been signed, the money transferred, that if we tried to back out, we'd be in trouble. What kind of trouble? She didn't say, but her tone was threatening. Rodriguez walked over to the bookcase, where family photos stood among the business books. The Carter brothers as children, with their parents, at the opening of the car dealership. Minus Mr. Carter, where were you between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. last night? Here, drinking, smoking, thinking about how to get out of this mess. Can anyone confirm that? Nunab too. I was alone. Sarah studied David. The motive was obvious. Get rid of his brother, gain control of the business and the criminal money. But something didn't add up. If you killed your brother, why kill Lillian? I didn't kill anyone, David said, stubbing out his cigarette and looking at the detective. But if I had, I would have killed only her. Marcus was an idiot, but he wasn't a criminal. Then who killed them? People who give money to launder don't like to be turned down, especially at the last minute. Sarah realized they needed to find the criminal investors. But first, they needed to check David's alibi and see if he was telling the truth. Minus Mr. Carter, we'll need your clothes from yesterday and a DNA sample. Of course, what else do you need? Access to the car dealership's financial records and the contact information of everyone who knew about the deal. David nodded and went to gather the required documents. Rodriguez whispered to Sarah, "He's either telling the truth, or he's a great actor, or a smart killer who prepared his story in advance." Half an hour later, the detectives left David's apartment with a box of documents and a new understanding of the case. This was not just a murder due to family problems, but the elimination of witnesses to a criminal scheme. The exclusive Companions agency was located in an office building in the city's business center. The sign said consulting services, but Sarah and Rodriguez knew what to look for. Monica Harris, the agency's owner, greeted them in an elegant office with panoramic windows. She was a woman in her 50s, wearing an expensive suit, with manicured nails and a professional smile. "Officers, how can I help you?" Sarah showed her the photo of Lillian. "Did this woman work for your agency?" Monica's smile became cautious. Lillian Gray was our independent contractor. She provided escort services for business events. "She's dead, Mrs. Harris." Monica sank into a chair, losing her professional facade. "What happened?" "Murder. We need information about her clients, especially her regulars." "We have a strict confidentiality policy." "We have a search warrant," Rodriguez said, placing the document on the table. "Cooperate voluntarily, or we will seize all computers." Monica studied the warrant and sighed. "Lillian worked with us for 3 years. One of our best girls. Educated, reliable, discreet." "Who are her clients?" "Mostly businessmen, politicians, sometimes foreigners, people who can pay for high-quality services." "Any problems with any of the clients?" Monica hesitated, then opened her computer. A month ago, one client became too pushy. Lillian complained that he was stalking her and calling her personal number. "Name?" "Rick Moreno. He owns a chain of car washes." Sarah wrote down the name. Rick Moreno was the businessman David wanted to sell the car dealership to. "What else about Moreno?" "He's married, but that doesn't stop him. He's rude and thinks money gives him the right to do anything." Lillian refused to meet with him. "When was that?" 3 weeks ago. He reacted very badly to her refusal. Rodriguez showed Monica a photo of Marcus. "Has this man been seen?" "Yes, he called the day before yesterday. He asked for a meeting with Lillian for yesterday evening. He was willing to pay double the usual rate." "Did Lillian agree?" "Of course. $1,000 for one night is good money, even for her." Sarah realized that the picture was becoming clearer. Rick Moreno had a motive to kill both Lillian, who had rejected him, and Marcus, who had refused to sell him the car dealership. "Mrs. Harris will need all the records on Moreno and Carter. I'll prepare the files." By Saturday evening, the detectives had gathered enough information to make an arrest. Rick Moreno turned out to be a man with a criminal past, ties to organized crime, and a propensity for violence. His alibi for the time of the murder was weak. He claimed he was at home with his wife, but neighbors saw him leave around 9 p.m. and return after midnight. A search of Moreno's home yielded results. Traces of cyanide, which he had purchased for pest control at car washes, were found in the garage. Correspondence with criminal figures about cleaning up witnesses was found on his computer. Moreno was arrested on Sunday morning at his country house. He did not resist arrest, but refused to make a statement until his lawyer arrived. Monday brought the final results of the examination. The cyanide in the champagne matched the sample from Moreno's garage. The fingerprints on the door of the room belonged to him. The investigators' version was simple. Moreno broke into the room while Marcus and Lillian were at the hotel restaurant, slipped the poison into the champagne, and left. He had intended to kill only one of them, but there was enough poison for both. He had 2 motives: revenge on Lillian for rejecting his advances and eliminating Marcus, who could have told the police about his attempts to involve the car dealership in criminal activities. On Tuesday, Rick Moreno was formally charged with double first-degree murder. Marcus Carter's funeral was held on Thursday in a packed church. Lisa Carter, dressed in black, stood with dignity, though tears streamed down her cheeks. Jason and Emma sat next to their mother, trying to understand why their father had ended up in a hotel with a woman they didn't know. David Carter gave a speech about his brother, without mentioning the circumstances of his death. He talked about the family business, how Marcus always put his family first, and his plans for the future. After the ceremony, he approached Detective Sarah, who had attended the funeral. "Thank you for finding the killer. Just doing my job. What will happen to the car dealership? That's up to you and Marcus's family." David nodded and looked at his brother's grave. "You know, he always said that the family business was sacred, that we had to pass it on to our children clean without debts or compromises. What are you going to do?" "I'll find a way to pay off the debts honestly. I'll sell my apartment, take out a loan, and work day and night, but I won't get involved with crime." Sarah believed him. His brother's death changed David, forcing him to rethink his priorities. Lillian Gray was buried the next day in a small cemetery outside the city. Less than 20 people attended. Colleagues from the agency, a few friends, distant relatives. Monica Harris closed the agency for a week as a sign of mourning. There were no lavish wreaths or long speeches at the grave. Lillian lived and died alone despite her money and success.